Not again, screamed Ricky, after opening the much-anticipated email. He cursed as he picked up the expensive mouse and threw it against the wall, slamming his fist down on the top-of-the-line gaming keyboard and shattering it. Ricky continued to stare at the message, the words mocking him from his computer screen. The message was topped with a large header and white font that stood in contrast to the black background. Right there, the two hated words said, "Story deletion." Ricky was too familiar with those words. In fact, he would have been able to recite the entire message from memory by now. Story deletion. Your story has been deleted because it doesn't meet the quality standards. If you feel that it did meet the standards, please state your case on deletion appeals. Make sure you follow the instructions to the letter, or your appeal process will be automatically denied. Do not attempt to re-upload your story. If you upload it again, you will receive a 1-day ban from editing, as per the rules. Ricky loves scary stories. He came from a culture rich in the history of the supernatural and the macabre. The only thing he loved more than scary stories was writing scary stories. Sadly, that was the problem. How did he put it? Well, the truth of the matter was that our friend Ricky, for lack of a better word, was a bad writer. There was zero talent in the poor boy's head, and the same could be said for his imagination as well. His characters had no substance, his grammar was atrocious, his plot development was non-existent, and his word choices, well, they were infantile. In fact, you could go so far as to say that you've probably seen pigeon droppings with more interesting narrative consistency than Ricky's stories. But I digress. What is truly sad about this whole ordeal was that Ricky truly believed his stories were good. Not just good, in fact. He thought they were great. The dark and sinister entries that inhabited the world he created were far superior to anything seen in movies or found on the internet. Or so he believed. His dark tales were capable of tapping into the primordial pool of terror buried deep in everyone's subconscious mind. That's what he expected his readers to find from one of his works. Whereas you and I would see it for what it was, a juvenile, uninspiring piece of crap. Some had even gone so far as to say that his stories are so bad, looking at the words for too long could give you pink eye. One boy claimed, after being forced to listen from beginning to end, that Ricky's story gave him an ear infection. Whether any of that is true or not, it's well known that once you finish reading a story authored by Ricky, you're actually dumber than when you began reading. Brain cells literally drop dead in the middle of whatever brain cells do in the brain. And believe me, it's not just a few. It's a lot of them. Worse still was that Ricky wouldn't hear it. He didn't like rejection, and he already had it in his head that they're not even reading his story. He's convinced they don't even bother to give it the time of day and automatically delete it. The tantrum builds and his cheeks turn red as he screams out loud, "Why would they not listen to me? They never listen to me. They never give me a chance." He knows that to be true, especially in consideration of how they treat him and what they say about his stories. He angrily reads the comments. Bad grammar and punctuation. But I'm new to this site. Can't you just tell me what to fix or fix it yourself? Misspelled words. It's the way my character speaks. Poorly written and awkward sentences. English isn't my first language, so give me a chance. The story isn't creepy. What do you mean it's not creepy? There's a witch in the story. How's that not scary? You see, Ricky is a spoiled kid from a well-to-do family. He's never had to go without, never had a demand that wasn't met, never had his ungrateful heart been denied a single request. There was nothing he could not have in his pampered life. However, with such a luxurious lifestyle, he also never had to aspire or dream for greater things. Despite its value, all the objects of his desire were carelessly tossed to the side or forgotten when the interest was lost. They meant nothing to him. Eventually, Ricky turned that frustration outward upon those who were weaker and less capable of standing up for themselves. For every insult, every slight, every time that he did not get what he wanted, he inflicted that rage upon the innocent bystanders 10 times over. He terrorized all the children within his sight. Well, tonight, that will all change. That's why I have been sent. This is my charge from me, la Dama. Tonight, I will reveal to him the story of his people and enlighten him about where he comes from. I bring knowledge under cover of night and carry revelations on the tip of my tongue. With his last breath, he will learn the final lesson. Thou shalt not suffer the cries of a spoiled child. So when the boy laid his head upon his pillow and closed his eyes to sleep, he would be unaware of the small leather pouch tucked ever so carefully beneath him. It will call out to her. It will summon her, and she will come. She will drink, even though her thirst for revenge can never be slaked. She will feed her hate, though her hunger can never be satisfied. To understand the events soon to pass, you must look to the past. Know this: the more days that go by, the more things stay the same. Long ago, the people of Mexico suffered from the deeds of corrupt men and endured the cruelty of the true rulers of the land, the cartel. While savagery and brutality swept across the plains and darkened the skies like a cloud of locusts, a small village near the city of Catemaco, Mexico, prospered. It remained a tranquil safe haven, untouched by evil men. In those days, the villagers were weak and vulnerable. They could not defend themselves against the powerful and corrupt men infected with sickness of greed. Government and town officials lined their pockets with the sweat and blood of the poor. No justice or protection ever came for the people. Farmers' crops were plundered and destroyed. Workers were kept in constant poverty. Their sons would be taken against their will by the banditos to replenish their numbers. Alas, it was the daughters of Mexico who suffered the most. Many mothers and fathers could only mourn before a single lit candle, for there was no body to bury for the funeral. They would live their lives never knowing what became of their beloved children. Too many shallow graves sprinkled the countryside with the bones of unnamed girls. Among the violence, all but one village suffered. Those of questionable character, with darkness in their hearts, would not dare enter the border of this town, for its people were under the protection of a powerful curandera. Her name was known from afar, and her magic was strong. The evil men knew this to be true, and they would not risk her wrath upon them. This ate away at their egos, and soon they began to conspire amongst themselves. In secret and darkened rooms, they plotted how to rid themselves of the meddlesome woman. Early one morning, the curandera woke to the sound of children's cries. It was not a cry of terror, but a cry of pain. She ran out of her small house to see a boy sitting on the dirt path that ran alongside her home. Next to him was an old bike. Hitched to the rear wheel was a weathered cart carrying a large wooden box. He sat crying on the ground, clutching both his arm and his leg. Even from a distance, she could see the 2 painful welts upon the boy's skin. The curandera knew precisely what had happened and took a glass jar of salve from her shelf. She went out to the boy and warmly asked, "What's the matter, little boy?" No answer came from the boy. A little infuriated, she asked again, "Did something sting you?" Was it an ant or a wasp? Again the boy said nothing. The curandera was becoming annoyed. She looked carefully at the boy who sat silently before her. From the clothes he wore, she knew that he was a rich man's son, most likely a child of an elected official or a member of the town elite. She gently applied the medicine to the 2 painful stings. The skin was hot and bright red, surrounding the lump the size of a grape. When she finished, the boy simply turned and jumped on his bike and pedaled away without a word. This angered the curandera, and she made a mental note. In the very near future, someone would need to teach this boy some manners and the importance of respecting his elders. Shortly thereafter, the curandera went about her day and forgot about the rude little boy. That night, after she had laid her head down to sleep, she awoke to a loud bang. The door had been broken down by several large men. They bound her hands and gagged her mouth to prevent any chance that she might utter a hex upon them. They took her wand, made from sacred wood, and snapped it in 2. They removed her medicine bag from around her neck, leaving the poor woman completely defenseless. The men dragged her before the town's clergy, who were the most corrupt of them all. Denying any opportunity to defend herself, the curandera was accused of witchcraft and blamed for this year's drought and poor harvest. They said she was in league with the devil and proclaimed her to be a Bruja. They sentenced her to death, the onlookers cheering upon hearing the verdict. She looked across the crowd and mourned for what she saw. The faces that she had known for so long, those faces who came to her when they were sick or needed healing, were gone. In their place were a hateful and dark-filled eye, filled with the bloodlust of an angry mob. She stood on the platform next to a short, thin coffin that stood upright. The crowd shouted and jeered as they grew impatient. She closed her eyes and tried to center herself amongst the shouts and sweats and insults. The curandera began to pray. She prayed the Holy Mother would deliver her. She begged and pleaded to her for protection. She pleaded with all her might. She begged the Holy Mother with desperation, proclaiming her good deeds done and her righteous life she had lived. Only silence greeted her, though. The crowd suddenly grew quiet, and the curandera opened her eyes. She saw the crowd separate in the middle and make a path for a little boy. The familiar child rode an old bike and pulled a cart with a box. He dismounted the bike and walked over to the rear, opened the box, and sat upon the cart as he carefully removed a large burlap sack. He held the bag at arm's length and quickly brought it out, showing the contents to the clergyman. As the man of God took hold of the sack, the boy looked up at the woman, smiled, and disappeared into the sea of bodies. Still bound, she was marched relentlessly to the edge of town. All the way she was beaten and humiliated by the people who followed along. She was brought before a freshly dug grave and shoved hard into the open coffin. She stared up at the man, who mocked her from above. Just as they were about to seal the coffin shut, the clergyman held out a large hand with a burlap sack. He flung the bag into the coffin, and the men quickly nailed it closed. The men picked up the coffin containing the curandera and dropped her into the dark hole. The sound of dirt covering the coffin was thunderous. She lay terrified in the dirt patch. Just before the light had been extinguished, she had seen what had been tossed in with her. At her feet lay the largest wasp nest that she had ever seen. Soon she felt hundreds of thin legs beginning to crawl over her body. They angrily explored the dark prison as they searched for the one who had dared to disturb them. Time slowed as the curandera waited for the first sting to strike her. Once again, she prayed to the Blessed Mother for protection, and still there was only silence. Pain from the first sting exploded over her right cheek. The sharp stingers were stabbed into her flesh. It tore through the skin and went as deep as it could. The wasp contracted its abdomen, pumping in venom. It pulled out the sharp tip and again jabbed the stinger back into her flesh, for the wasp can use its stinger over and over again. Even if they've exhausted their venom, they will not stop piercing the skin. She screamed in pain as she was stung again and again. They stung her eyes and crawled into her open mouth and stung her tongue. The insects crawled down her throat and into her ears. Venom filled her veins, and her skin turned red as it swelled and burned. The wasp's poison saturated her blood, causing it to thicken and burn. The swelling cut off her breathing, and she began to convulse. The angry little beasts began to stab her more relentlessly. Not a single spot on her body was spared from the wasp's sting. The pain continued to grow. She was about to call out to the Virgin Mother when she stopped herself. Betrayal and abandonment hit her deeply, causing more agony than a wasp could bestow. Anger and hate consumed the woman. She knew what she had to do. She would call out to another deity. The deity would come. She would call out for Santa Muerto. The curandera lay motionless in the dark, wheezing and gasping for air. Her stings upon her skin were stretched until it tore from swelling. The swarm of insects continued to poke and jab with their long stingers. The buzzing of their wings was deafening. Then suddenly, all was silent. The scraping of long fingernails traveled down the side of the coffin. The curandera tried to open her eyes, but her face was so bloated. It mattered not. She had no sight, as the wasps had penetrated her eyelids and filled her eyes with venom. The scraping stopped, and the curandera heard the low and ancient voice of a woman. "What's the matter, my daughter?" The crowd had not yet dispersed when the ground began to shake. The men had lingered and were congratulating themselves and laughing when the ground suddenly opened up. Black thorns emerged from the soil where she had lain, and the dirt blackened with decay. All was still for a moment, until a deep, inhuman moan was heard from the sky. It called to its new disciple beneath the ground. The villagers cowered when the low voice boomed from the crack that spread out from the spot of the woman's unholy grave. "I curse you. I curse your children. They will taste the venom that now flows through my veins. When I hear a child cry, I will come. I will come to your children. They will feel my sting. I will nest within a home made from their skin. I will use their bones for stirring my brew. I will quench my thirst with their tears. I will dance to a melody made from the symphony of their screams." She let out one final wail of demonic rage until only the sound of wasp wings could be heard. 3 days later, the traitorous boy, helped by the curandera, disappeared without a trace. It was fate that brought the two together. He had been tasked with finding a wasp nest. It was by chance that 2 of the insects escaped and stung the boy near the woman's home. She had shown him mercy, and he had repaid her with rudeness and betrayal. An empty bed was all they found, except for the small pouch hidden underneath his pillow. Within, they found it held only a piece of paper wasp nest, ash, and a lock of hair cut from the boy's own head. She still keeps a part of him on her at all times, even to this day. As time went by, more and more of the children disappeared. Eventually, like the righteous curandera, the little village died slow and painfully. The people in that area still speak of the dark Bruja. It's told that when the day shortens and the nights grow cold, the children must be especially good and obedient, for if a child is spoiled and shows no respect, the Bruja will find him. They say she is dressed all in black and wears a cloak made of wasps. She can fly long distances and climb up walls. She will tap on your window and tempt the child to let her in. Her nails will click and tap on the window pane until the child hears her voice from out in the darkness. So that is the story of La Bruja. She is the one I serve. She is my lady, and I serve her well. I find those children who are spoiled and rotten. I find the ones most deserving of the fate my lady brings. Who am I? Well, let's just say I am someone who is familiar with matters such as these. But that is a story for another day. However, I will tell you this. I am neither angel nor demon, but I perform God's will. I bring balance. That is my mandate from heaven. The Bruja has no mercy. She holds dark and powerful magic, fueled by an inexhaustible source of hatred. I direct that hatred to those deserving of it. Such hatred and wickedness cannot be allowed to roam free and go unchecked. I ensure the innocents are protected, and the wicked are punished. So listen to my words, boys and girls. Do what you are told. Honor your mother and father. Be on your best behavior. You don't want to end up like little Ricky here, now do you? Take heed, for if you do not, there will come a night when you will hear tapping at your window. As the buzzing of 1,000 wings fills your ears, you will hear the low voice of a woman asking, "What's the matter, my child?"